In Jon Krakauer's book Into the Wild, he tells the story of Chris McCandless, a young man who abandons his everyday life and disappears from the lives of his family. He does this because he believed that society's expectation of a structured and average life only limited the potential of one's life, and to achieve true happiness they must discover their own boundaries. This conveys an inspirational tone to the reader and causes them to reflect on their own lives. You are wrong if you think joy emanates only or principally from human relationships. God has placed it all around us. It is in everything and anything we might experience. We just have to have the courage to turn against our habitual lifestyle and engage in unconventional living. Chris McCandless.
Jon Krakauer's book Into the Wild starts with a man named Alex going off into the Alaskan wildlife. A body is later discovered by some hunters in an abandoned bus. The body is believed to be a man named Chris McCandless who wrote an SOS note and put it on the bus that contained the dead body. It was determined that the man had starved to death. The book then moves back in time, telling the story of how Chris McCandless became known by many as Alex. Alex met many different people on his 2-year-long journey and traveled to many different places like California, Arizona, and South Dakota before ending it and his life in Alaska.
Jon Krakauer himself has had some experience with dangerous situations in the wild. He tried climbing the Devil's Thumb, located in Alaska, and nearly fell into a crevice. He also almost didn't receive his supplies. He continues climbing and he faces more problems along the way due to recklessness on his part. Eventually, Krakauer reaches the summit. The story moves back to McCandless's adventure in Alaska. He finds the bus and lives off of small animals. He eventually manages to kill a moose and tries to preserve it so he can eat every part of it, but fails and has to let the wolves have it. McCandless prepares to leave the bus, but is stopped by a raging river. He returns to the bus, not knowing that the river can be crossed 1 mile upstream without a map. It is discovered that McCandless could have died from eating a toxic potato seed. The story ends with the McCandless family visiting the bus where Chris had died. They leave behind a plaque and survival supplies. Krakauer uses similes, alliteration, imagery, narrative, and pathos throughout the book to tell the reader about McCandless's inspiring story. Chris McCandless was at peace, serene as a monk gone to bed. Jon Krakauer ends his book with this simile to clarify to the audience that Chris McCandless died happy without regretting his dangerous journey around America.
He was unheeded, happy, and near to the wild heart of life. He was alone and young and willful and wild-hearted, alone amid a waste of wild air and brackish waters and the sea harvest of shells and tangle and veiled gray sunlight. Jon uses alliteration to emphasize Chris's feelings when being so close with nature. McCandless was stirred by the austerity of the landscape, by its serene beauty. The desert sharpened the sweet ache of his longing, amplified it, gave it shape to it, in seared geology and clean slant of light. Krakauer uses imagery to describe the beauty McCandless saw in the Colorado landscape and how passionate he was about it. The insubstantial frost feathers ensured that the last 20 feet remained hard, scary, wondrous. But then suddenly there was no place higher to go. I felt my cracked lips stretch into a painful grin. I was on top of the Devil's Thumb. Jon Krakauer uses this narrative to show his own experiences of what he achieved in Alaska.
You really should make a radical change in your lifestyle and begin to boldly do things which you may previously never have thought of doing or been too hesitant to attempt. So many people live within unhappy circumstances and yet will not take the initiative to change their situation, be they are conditioned to a life of security, conformity, and conservation, all of which may appear to give one peace of mind, but in reality, nothing is more damaging to the adventurous spirit within a man than a secure future. The very basic core of a man's living spirit is his passion for adventure. Chris McCandless, in a letter to Ron, uses pathos through this statement to convince him to go out into the wild to fulfill his life's potential.
The tone of the book causes the reader to be inspired by Chris's fearlessness and causes them to reflect on their own life. The joy of life comes from our encounters with new experiences, and hence there is no greater joy than to have an endlessly changing horizon, for each day to have a new and different sun. If you want to get more out of life, you must lose your inclination for monotonous security and adopt a helter-skelter style of life that will at first appear to you to be crazy, but once you become accustomed to such a life, you will see its full meaning and its incredible beauty.